nervous?
No.
Where's your answer?
Dennis Beckham, let the ball on! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Dennis Beckham! Oh!
Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it.
Welcome to the Suffering from Droid podcast. My name is Devin. We got some news, but we have a good panel here too, so I don't know. Let's go ahead and do it. Scott, do you have any good news for us?
The good news is that Austin FC won a Sunday game for the first time, or the first MLS regular season Sunday game since April of 2022, and they should have won by even more than they did.
Good analysis. Seth, how about you?
We've got some good news. We've had Austin FC players score in international competitions and World Cup qualifiers for the first time ever in 2 in 1 day.
Wow, do you want to tell us more?
Sure. First, our boy Jimmy Farkland scored a goal for Liberia in a African World Cup qualifier against Tome and Principe. It was a nice header in the box. Sadly, he got carted off on a stretcher to start the second half. So we'll see if he's back playing for the first or second team anytime soon. But he did get the score, an international goal. And then later in the day, Merto Azuni came on as a sub against Andorra and scored a wide open header in the box to make it 3-0 to give the Albanians their first world victory of the World Cup qualifying cycle.
Yeah, the Jimmy injury was a little weird. He just trotted out for the second half, and for those of you who don't watch African World Cup qualifiers, they don't have the best camera angles, but they just cut away and then they came back and then he was on a stretcher, so it was hard to follow. Hopefully he's all right.
Yeah, it is. We'll see and we'll get an injury report on Saturday or maybe something from Nico before then. But I have no idea if that was I'm just done with this match injury or he's done for the year injury. Both those things could be true, which is kind of crazy.
It was weird that he trotted out if it was I need to go back to my home club thing. But also, Brad, we've got rid of Leo Weissman for $550,000 to BK Hacken. Good business? How are you feeling?
I think that's just fine. I don't know what else you would get for him. So $500,000 for someone that wasn't producing or playing on the roster at this point, and it opens up an international spot. So it gives us 2 international spots and 3 senior spots to work with total. I like it. We'll probably be very active here in a few months when the next window opens, and we could still see some activity over the next few weeks while the current window is open.
Yeah, I think so. Any hesitations about if we should have signed him in the first place because he's going to play with Adam Lundqvist?
Well, I think Lundqvist was really the trendsetter here. So, because they played on the same team. And my guess is that they actually colluded on the back end to play again together because they enjoyed it so much in 2022 or 23, right? That has to be the answer.
Does it?
Sure.
Okay. Well, works for me.
Prove me wrong.
I can't. There's not a way to do it. We are still awaiting Adam Lundqvist's response. We were in Göteborg, where BK Hacken is located. If he wants to do a full interview with the podcast, he's more than welcome. Get in touch with us, Adam. So, guys, we won a game of football, and it was a very, very interesting tactical game. And I thought we did really well. Scott, you want to lead us off? What happened?
Austin managed to give San Diego FC their first loss as a franchise, which not that many teams get to do, and means we're always going to be the answer to a great trivia question. I don't know. It was very interesting looking at the lineup. I think all of us kind of looked at it and thought, oh, this is a collection of 11 players that all play for Austin FC, and weren't really sure what it was going to look like or how it was going to play. And, really credit to Nico for adjusting his tactics and his formation in ways that no other Austin FC coach has ever done. Also, Argentina just went up on Brazil in the 4th minute, for those of you watching along.
Impressive. Yeah, I sent a message that never went through because the stadium internet is terrible that said, this is going to be a fucking shit show as soon as I saw the lineup, and didn't end up being that. But Seth, you want to give us your initial thoughts on Biro playing center back in the general lineup?
I thought at first I was like, okay, I figured Bureau was the best option available. Like, let's have Ilya at the 6. Let's not have him. We saw what John Kolmanich did as a center back against San Antonio FC, and they will be forever thankful for that. So, like, there is like, okay, Bureau is probably the best option. And the fact that I don't have anything bad to say about Guilherme Bureau at this point means that he is our instant stock rising of the week. So I'm already taking that from format later. Like, it is just like he did it. He did a good enough job. The goal that was given up was not really his fault. As we go, like, you know what? From a center back point of view, that's a pretty solid performance. I will take that any day, and that also makes me think that we're not going to sign another center back onto this roster as long as the other 3 are healthy. And it was great to see Julio get 15 minutes out there at the end of the match.
Yeah, I think that's right. And like you said, we didn't really notice Biro was playing center back, so he did a great job, right? Brad, you want to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the game overall was won exactly the way that on this panel talked about winning last week, which was long balls, counterattacks, and testing the back line with speed for San Diego. And that was clearly the strategy. It was interesting. I was sitting with Scott during the game, and there was a guy behind us yelling about, "What are you doing?" every time that we would not do something to his liking. And I'm sitting here just actively in my head going, are you not watching the same game? Because it was 10 minutes into the game, pretty obvious what the entire plan was, which was to suck the San Diego offense in far, try to get that back line moved up, and then hit them quick on the counter and let some speed get behind them. It worked, and it worked repeatedly. And it will work repeatedly in this league long term, because there's a lot of teams in this league that Josh Wolf, who value possession but don't know how to use possession. And if you just let them have the ball long enough and then let them get slightly disorganized, you can attack it. We've got enough speed to do that. So I thought the game plan was really interesting. I felt like we changed formations 2 or 3 times during the match. Scott and I he pointed out first that it looked like we set up a Christmas tree to start the game. And then kind of moved to a 4-4-2 after the first set of subs, and then a more traditional 4-3-3 in the second set of subs. On rewatch, it was that, but also a little more ambiguous. But you could tell, I thought they played well. I thought we played smart. Owen Wolf was the best player on the pitch, and I don't think that was particularly close. And this team has got some talent, and we're starting to see what we've been preaching since week 1, which is just be patient. We're in week 5. You have a team averaging 1.8 points a game right now, y'all. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're in second in the West. That's all right. That's okay, guys. I started laughing in like the 10th minute because Scott and I last week were both like, well, we need to clog the middle and we need to like push pace on the end. And like, we just kept hitting that and getting chances. So it was a lot of fun. Seth, did you notice anything we did differently in the first half than normal?
First of all, we came out with a formation that we were effectively playing with two strikers, and we got to a point where we were really setting up the ideal format for Brandon Vasquez. We got to a point of our goal was to try to figure out how do we let Brandon Vasquez make as many runs as possible. And you know what? He's faster than a bunch of MLS draft pick center backs. Like if Paddy McNair had been there, their normal starting center back, the Northern Ireland International, I don't think we play this game plan. But we actually now have a coach who can adapt to whatever roster. Let's face it. If we had had a coach who, I don't know, we saw a team that was running out a bunch of, I don't know, let's say teenagers, or was running out some other players there and like would just still do the same thing. That's how you get to frustrating results. And was that the world's prettiest win? Absolutely not. But you know what? We created enough chances that if we had a completely informed Brandon Vasquez, he scores 3 or 4 in that first half.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing for me. Like the first 5 minutes, we were pushing and trying to run down every single ball in their half, and then after about 5-10 minutes, we just stopped.
Yeah, and it's
we
also
slowed
like
down a little bit.
it was, and we noticed it a little bit more towards the end of the match, but it was, and the three of you were there. I was not there. I was admittedly had to watch a bunch of this on rewatch because I was in at the Chicago Red Czars game where they lost to the Houston Dash 2-1 in a 40-degree rain in Bridgeview, Illinois. So it was funny. So I got the first half of this, like occasionally checking on Slack. The second half was my drive home listening to the game from Lincoln Rose. And I had a friend in the car listening with me who had never listened to Lincoln Rose before. And Lincoln, obviously, you're a friend of the pod. You have said you've promoted us in the past, and we enjoy your commentary. And actually, it's pretty funny. But there's just certain things that are very hard to call a game on radio. And there was a point in the second half where he describes a shot sailing, and then the ball ends up landing in the 6 rather than going over the goal. And I'm just dying laughing listening to this in the car of like, oh, this is really hard to do. And like, Brad has more experience than I do, but like calling a game, especially without a color person, doing that as a one-man show requires a lot of respect. And I might have been one of 100 people listening on Sirius XM to his radio call of it, but I also appreciate that there was getting updates like every 2 minutes of it. And it did feel like, okay, you're in the match. You can hear Murga, unlike on Apple TV most of the time. Like it's actually a fairly enjoyable way to get an understanding of 80% of what's happening.
I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many times I thought a home run was happening in my voice in a call and then had to stop when it didn't even get close to the warning track. So yes, I 1000% sympathy. I have sympathize here.
If it's there, it's gone back, and it's caught at the warning track. We won the game.
We won the game
from open play.
Mm-hmm. 2 goals from open play, and also like strategic goals from like the fact that the second goal came on a play that we saw the opportunity, realizing like, hey, we're still in our own half. You can be in front of the line there. Like if that pass had been timed a second later, that's offside. Like the fact that it was caught on the own half there, and like Galley did his job. Like heads up play by Owen there. And I don't know whether they were actually devising this in an ice bath. I think that's kind of a funny image, but like, hey, you know what? There can be magical moments anywhere at this point.
So Scott, I got greedy and I watched this game and I thought we should have won at least 4-1. We scored some good goals. What happened?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to push back. I don't think the second goal was open play. I would count that as off for a free kick. But that's just me. Argentina just got a second.
I mean, if you make a 70-yard run, I would say that is not from a yes. Like it started with a set piece, but like, does a short corner after a minute still count as a corner kick goal?
I mean, I think
their guy stopped the ball.
Yes, no. I think it counts because the guy who got the assist was the guy who took the free kick. Like I think that would count. To me, that counts it as a set piece goal. No,
I feel like that wouldn't be like a hockey assist there because like you would have run too far with the ball or puck there, like at that point.
So did the San Diego guy who stopped the ball get a hockey assist in MLS play?
Yes,
you should.
100%.
Yes.
No, like a negative assist.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Austin easily could have scored 5. I think even if you just count one of Vasquez's one-on-one with the keepers that he didn't convert, you count the Bukhari should have crossed when Vasquez was wide open on the back post. That's 4, and then the other shot that he had that the keeper barely kept out, and O'Brien's last second cross field into the empty netter. That honestly, going back to what Brad was saying about thinking that the ball was going to be a home run and not, we both got kind of excited as that was coming toward the goal until the curve just took it way far away. No, I thought Austin did a really good job of just staying organized and staying compact and staying central, and they get the ball, turn, kick it upfield, and keep kicking it upfield, and it worked really well. And when you have Vasquez running behind, like that's a great just set of play. Going back to the free kick goal, I know that a lot of fans complain about players holding up play or like standing in front of the ball for a free kick, but that's why you do that. Like you don't see goals like this happen very often because you have teams who aren't as naive as San Diego were, standing in front of the ball or not letting it get put in play until they're set. they ultimately stopped the ball. And as soon as they did that, you could tell that Owen and John saw what was happening and saw what was behind. And play was on as soon as they did. And they did a great job of just slowly getting up there. And then as soon as they knew that there was no way it was going to get stopped, John takes off. And, when you have a right back who's a converted striker, you can just do those things and he can just score goals. I saw a stat today that he's the only Austin FC player to score in every season of the club, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. He's also up to third on the all-time goal list, tied with Alex Ring.
So I'm going to open this up generally. Were they bad or were we good on that counterattack?
We were both. Like, both of those things can be true at the same time here. Like, they completely messed it up, and we were pretty brilliant to think about it. Like, I don't know if the first 4 years of Austin FC, if we actually think about that and do that.
Oh, no, that ball goes 20 yards backwards to Stuber in the first few years. That's the way that works. No, I like, if it's true that they saw that during tape. And you could see Gallagher pointing behind the man he was making a run to. And Owen saw it and made the pass. Like, that's really good work. And that is there's a really good argument to me that Owen might be, soccer IQ wise, top 2 or 3 on this team, along with Mikkel Dessler. Just his ability to see the field. We talked about, should Brandon have had a couple of more goals? Should Bucati have had a couple of more goals? Owen should have had another assist, at least one, on the through ball that he played to Brandon in the second half. So I think that's the one where Brandon just completely whiffed it out wide. It was either him or Diego, but it was one of the two. I can't remember because there were so many damn chances, which is nice to say, how many wide open opportunities that were on keeper during the game. And I think that's the frustration I have with neutrals or Taylor Twellman preview here for watching the game, is there's this idea out there that we got dominated for most of the game. Would I have liked to have a little more possession? Yeah, I'm not a fan of 70-30. We were talking, and Scott and I were like, 60-40 would be at least, more comfortable and give your defense a break. But at no point did it look like we were being forced to do what San Diego wanted us to do. We were dictating how we wanted to play the game. And it's frustrating that people just think that you can't win this way, when the best team of the last 4 or 5 years in this league largely wins playing counterattack soccer in LA. So I thought it was a really nice performance. I'm really high on Nico right now, just because his tactical flexibility is extremely refreshing. And that was even more refreshing when I got home Saturday night. So I was watching, or when I watched Saturday night and then composing it to Sunday afternoon after we watched our game. I had gone out Saturday night for dinner with some folks and my wife, because it was Carrie's birthday. And when we got home, I got to see like the last late nights of games. And Houston was playing Vancouver. Not Vancouver. Seattle. Yeah, Seattle, sorry. And at one point, Houston's on an attack and then immediately pulls the ball back. And the commentator on the game legitimately goes, "They do this all the time, and I don't understand it. They're not just moving forward." And I'm like, well, I can explain this one to you, buddy.
Explain it, Brad. Explain it.
He was their biggest offseason acquisition of the offseason. It's happening. But it's nice to see that we are finding different ways to win a game. I still go back to what we have been talking about for several weeks now, which is, if you build a defense-first team and then let the offense build on top of that, you will be long-term dangerous in this league. We've given up 3 goals in 5 games? It's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good, y'all.
Yeah. What's also interesting to look at this is that I was pulling up the pass stats from this game. We only attempted 288 passes. And admittedly, we only completed 74% of our passes, which is pretty low. Like, there is room for improvement there. San Diego took 735 passes and completed 92% of them. I'd argue that's too high of a pass percentage completion, because how many of those passes were just ticky tack, center back to center back, center back to fullback, maybe a little bit. It is like the definition of horseshoe of sadness looks something like that 92 percent completion percentage there.
Well, and our 74% is, you could point directly to the long balls and switches that we were trying to play that get kicked just a little too far, or, maybe get cut out by a defender. One where Vasquez made a great run and the defender stayed on him well in the first half, I think it was right after the first goal. So it's going to show a little different on that 74%, I think, too, for us.
Yeah.
One other shout out for Vasquez, I think, that you saw today, or you saw Sunday for the first time since he's been here. His timing on runs is excellent. He's fast, but I think people think he's faster than he really is. When you are timing your run perfectly and you're getting that half a step out early on your defender, it's going to allow you an extra step or two to get in front of the defender, because that defender's got to get going when you've already started. So he plays right on the edge and right on the shoulders, and I think he was offside once the entire game, despite all of those breakaways. Buka was offside on what should have been a FIFA goal, so it wouldn't have counted anyway. But otherwise, we were largely, despite playing deep and despite kicking the ball down the field and just trying to run it down, we were really good about staying onside and making those opportunities count, or we haven't been in the first few weeks.
Yeah, Alex Ferguson used to have this great line about Pipo Inzaghi, that he was born in an offside position. And that's sort of how it felt like Brandon Vasquez was, but just barely on that line. And he meant it as a compliment. I have a big question about San Diego's coaching here. So I mentioned we essentially pressed super high for the first 5 minutes, then started dropping back in. After that, basically they tried to funnel into the middle, and as Scott said last week, just stop that and you're fine. Almost every single play we had that ended up in a goal scoring chance was Sabo recovers the ball, passes it to Owen, passes it forward. They never adjusted. Is that us being good, or them just not paying attention?
So I think it's part of them not paying attention. It's also their fifth game. I think another thing to remember, and we started talking about it a little earlier, is that this was the first warm weather game that we've played this year. As a 3:00 game, it was 87, 88 degrees there. I was starting to make this point, and then I ended up making a completely different point earlier, which is why everything was coming together there. But it's San Diego plays it's San Diego. Yes, it does get warm out where Snapdragon is occasionally in the summertime, or even in September, October. But their guys, some of our guys were not used to training in that heat. And you could see it, especially by the end of the match, Sabovic was dead. And I think he's also been fasting and other things as well as part of Ramadan. But still, it is getting to a world of okay, you've gone for 77 minutes or 90 minutes of this, and your mind doesn't start to think normally, regardless of what body condition you're in, if you're not used to playing in that heat. And I'm actually surprised there wasn't a drinks break in there, because it was over the heat index that could have allowed for it, but they chose not to, which I thought was its own interesting decision.
I thought that was a little interesting, and most of the field was in the sun the whole game too. But Scott, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think some of it is that San Diego was limited by the players they didn't have. They didn't have Ingwertsen, they didn't have Godoy, they didn't have McNair, who was mentioned earlier. And I think that is just kind of their strategy, is to play central, but they were trying to do it without their best players and their starters, and they never adjusted to just throwing more wingers on. They just basically just played with wingbacks the whole game, who weren't very effective, because every time that they push forward too far, they get beat behind. And so it just kind of became this strategy that was kind of self-fulfilling, that Austin set up the correct way and San Diego didn't, and they never had the ability to make a change to fundamentally change the concept of the game. And some of that was because they're limited, but also Austin did a really good job of making sure that Dreyer, he just wasn't able to affect the game the way he's been before, because he just didn't have space inside. And when you go back to what was said earlier about Nico and the setup, playing four central midfielders made a lot of sense, because they stuck Danny on that left side, and whenever Dreyer wanted to cut in, Danny was there to stop it. and you just didn't give him that space to create.
Yeah, I think this is a good rule for like sports in general, but we've been doing it really well this year, and we talked about it last week. Like, make not your best player beat us. We'll double them up. That's fine.
Yeah, make them play
figure out
left-handed.
a way to
I
beat
think
us.
is the quote a lot of coaches say.
What'd you say?
Make them play left-handed.
Yeah.
Just because the predominance of like making sure that players just can't use their dominant hand.
Yeah. It seems to be working okay. Can we talk about the switches? Did any other tacticos love the essentially just pass it out to one side, suck their entire D over to one space, and then just flip it to the other side and go? Almost always to Gallagher. This is again a thing that I can't believe they didn't pick up on and just like sag somebody off on the other side, but I guess they did. The Josh Wolfie, and I'm sorry to invoke him, but like, we have one plan, we're going to keep doing it. Like, we scouted this, we saw it. It just opened up the entire field, and I don't know how they didn't move on it.
No, I actually think it's a perfect time to invoke Josh, because to me, this is the first. We've seen glimpses of it, but to me, this game showed the biggest difference, I think, tactically in what we have as a head coach now versus what we had the last 4 years. The way we set up, the way we made changes during the game. We didn't even make like for likes, right? So as we made subs during the match, we weren't making like for like. We were changing formations and changing where guys were playing and how we were playing based on where the subs were coming in. So where Josh was traditionally, he would rarely throw on the extra attacker when we needed it, right? It was a very rare thing for him. He did a little bit in 22, if I remember right. That was about it. So to me, I think this is, we all question, did we hire Nico too fast? Well, this podcast did. And should we have waited to see what was out there? I think, I'm not making a definitive statement after 5 games, but I think there's enough evidence here initially to say this looks like a pretty solid hire by Roto and seeing the forest for the trees where maybe we didn't.
Is it too early to say that?
I mean, 5 games in, to me, I was going to give it.
After a few games in April of 2022. There was more games than 5, but not too many more. So I don't know. I'm still in the early season. Let's obviously Nico gets this season no matter what. We're not Montreal, who Montreal fired their coach 5 matches into a season. If that is not convincing you that they are not the most European city in the league, I don't know what will.
Despite spending no money for the last decade?
Yes.
And they haven't played a home game yet.
Yes.
Their first 7 games are on the road, and they fired him before he was.
Oh
like,
yeah,
he's got to
so
coach
like,
at home.
I think I'm the only one here who's been to Stade Saputo before. Stade Saputo is like, I don't know, it's like one of these like facilities in the Midwest that you can't use until April because there's going to be floods once the snow melts, and that we don't actually have enough indoor plumbing for the stadium to function when it's under 32 degrees. So they normally have to play their March home matches at the Stade Olympique next door at the Olympic Stadium, which is on turf. It is hilarious. They played a CCC match there against Club America a few years ago where there were like 45,000 Club America fans inside the hallowed grounds of the Stade Olympique. It's quite the YouTube viewing if you want to see that. But yeah, it's under renovations this year, so that is not was not an option. So they had to open on the road. And ooh, yeah. Actually, another fun trivia question since we talked about this. Who was the first team to beat Austin FC at Q2?
I'm gonna go with FC Dallas.
Nope.
Was it the teenager game?
No, it was the game before the teenager game.
There's
I'm totally lost
here.
What's that?
I'm totally lost at this point.
I want to say Kansas City, but I think that's wrong.
No, we've never lost to Kansas. We've never even drawn against Kansas City.
Yeah,
no,
we're taking all 50.
The team was the same team that beat us in our first ever game, LAFC.
That would make sense.
So I have a 2-part question for all of you. In the 4th minute, Brandon Vasquez is through on goal. He gets taken down by a rookie player, I think playing his first game. Should that player have been sent off, is this dog so? Scott, go first.
So, in the U.S. Men's World Cup qualifier that was played in Q2, a similar play happened involving Paul Arriola. And in the audience, people were calling for Dogso, and I said, no, that can't be a Dogso. We all know Paul Arriola isn't a goal scoring chance. I don't think that one was because of how the other defender and the goalkeeper were positioned, and I think it was a little too far out. And I think had that been the call on the field, they wouldn't have overturned it by VAR.
Yeah, I think that's right. Whatever they called on the field is what they would have stuck with. Seth?
Oh, it's God. First, in watching it, I thought like, oh gosh, yeah, no, like he was going right in on goal. It's one of those things that no matter what the call was on the field, it would have stood. Like I think like that's our infamous orange card there. That like it could go either way. I feel like in the 70th minute of the match, it might have been a red card. The 4th minute of the match, that's a yellow card. That doesn't mean it's fair. It doesn't mean it's right. I hear Brad say this all the time on this podcast. A foul inside the box is a foul outside the box, but I think it's probably just short of being dogso.
Brad?
Live in stadium, I thought it was a Dogso. On rewatch, I don't. I thought that the keeper comes out far enough, and Vasquez isn't going directly enough at goal for me to make it a clear Dogso. So, because I'm not sure that when he gets taken down, like keeper's pretty much racing out to like there was kind of a chance to win a bit of a 50-50 ball there. And that's where I look at it and go, yellow might be the right call. In stadium, I was going absolutely ballistic.
Yeah, that was right in front of me, and I still think it's Dogso, but I get the other side of it. And I actually think our good friend, however, Philip, makes the correct call here. Because, like Seth, you said, it's the 3rd, 4th, 5th minute, whatever. You call it safely, and then if you're really wrong, somebody's going to correct you. I don't think it's, if you look at just like the back end foul, the keeper is going to get to the ball, but like he fouls him about 3 times before then. And I think that's why it's Dogso, but this isn't something I'm going to get really upset about. Follow-up questions. So,
point of order, real quick before your follow-up question.
Sure.
We had the however ref on Sunday. Oh my God! I needed to bring a sign. Damn it!
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you knew that.
I did not.
Yeah, we had the however ref, and we had Weeby in the supporter section.
It was a fucking day, dude.
I was about to say, are we now fans of more Sunday night afternoon soccer at Q2?
Yes.
As long as Weeby's not there, I'm fine with it.
Hey, you know what? I will say that Austin FC is 1-0 with Andrew Weeby at home.
Don't care.
Can he not wear, goofy ass outfit next time? That'd be great.
You know what? Like the only person that suffered was him because like it was hot out there, and like he's living like yes, he does get warm in Kansas, but he lives in New Jersey now. It's probably like 38 when he got on the plane at Newark to come down, and he's probably like, "Why the hell did I agree to this?"
So I'm going to let you guys go in on this guy, but my general rule is somebody who does something and whose entire career is based around getting attention because I guess their mom didn't hug them enough as a child. I try to just sort of ignore, but if you guys want to rag on him for his outfit or whatever, go for it right now, and then we'll move on.
That's fine. I'm more just disappointed in the amount of people that played up because Apple TV had, like when he was doing his spots for the game, was like, come on, get loud every time he would do something. And we had just way too many people for my taste playing it up. You got to make it at least hostile to that guy for the first time he's here. After that, then whatever. But too many short memories for my taste for what happened in 2022 with that dude because he's kind of an admitted troll. And
no, he's not a troll. He's an asshole.
Yeah,
like, a troll involves like playing up the audience as part of the like performance art. He's just a fucking dick.
Yeah, I wish more of our people would not have played up into helping him create content, I guess. However, I will say Alistair McAllister completely giving him the bonus game shit live on air. That was well done.
Yeah, Alistair was fantastic. Just like the whole like yeehaw, I'm gonna dress up as champ kind, I thought was mocking us, and we played into it. And I don't generally tend to like that stuff, but whatever. Different strokes for different folks.
I think Andrew Wiebe knows that he's playing a heel, and he knew that he looked like a dork, and everybody reacted to it in exactly the way he wanted, and good for him for committing to the bit. Also, he's a shill for MLS, and I will never believe anything he says about calls or refereeing on his show because he is just not somebody who can be trusted or believed.
I mean, it's state media. Like, what would you expect from state media?
Yeah, like it's like being mad at like the announcers at like WWE for saying something. Like, we all know what they're there for.
Michael Cole is a fair and unbalanced announcer, sir.
I definitely know what that meant. All right, so reverting back to my second question to follow up about that Dogso call. The next Los Verdes watch party is at Radio East on Montopolis. Starts a little before the game. Seth, we're at 1 on Sunday.
We are at 1:25 will be kickoff time.
1:25 official time. There's going to be food trucks. What I'm really interested in, there will be a witches market. Will this help us get more calls? Seth, you're our witches.
Well, we're recording on Tuesday night. We will find out who our official is at 9:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll let you know there. But because it's on Fox, I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm not going to go predict what official we're going to have. That's kind of crazy. But I expect that we will have, we're kind of cursed in St. Louis right now. We have lost there by a combined 7-3 in the 2 matches that we've played there. So I think having a witches market in Austin to try to reverse those curses is a good thing.
Brad, do you want to help us? How do we get the witches to help? I don't know a ton about like local witches. Like generally I know about witches, but like local witches, do they prefer just like, yeah, just buy me a beer, like make a suggestion? How do local witches work?
I'm not real sure because most of my witch knowledge comes from Hocus Pocus.
It's a good movie.
I think you just have to find the one that's riding the vacuum cleaner, and she'll probably be the person to help you the most.
Did she strike you as the most effective witch in that movie?
No, there's not. There's only one effective one in the entire movie, but it was Bette Midler's character, right? Like, she's the one that was actually decent. It was Bette Midler in that movie, right? I've only seen it like 2 or 3 times.
Well, okay, you relied on it, and you're talking about Bette Midler. You didn't even mention Kathy Nanjimi or Sarah Jessica Parker or the guy from NCIS who ends up being Thackeray Binks. Like, we can go full fucking bore here, Brad.
See, I know the character names. I don't actually know the people in them. Besides, I think Sarah Jessica Parker is the only one, and that's because she was married to Matthew Broderick. Or still is, I think. So that's the only one I actually remember. And I remember I thought it was Bette Midler was the other one. Am I right on this, Devin? Please let me know.
Yeah, it is. Correct, Bette Midler.
It's Bette Midler. Also, talking about going full bore, Argentina just went out 3-1 on Brazil, thanks to a great goal by McAllister. So my understanding of the local witches is that that market is every month. So it's not a like one-off thing that we can do. I'm not sure their effectiveness just based on like gesturing wildly at the world. But I do think that we could probably convince them to help as much as they can. I do think it would involve beer, and I also think it would involve possibly a virgin sacrifice. But I don't know who in LV would be nominated for that. But I'm sure we can find a volunteer somewhere.
So I'm a big fan of blood sacrifices, but I don't know how those two cross over. And I don't really want to be offensive to witches. So
I was going to say, I think they're crossing over right now in Buenos Aires because there's a huge brawl taking place between the Argentine and Brazilian players right now. And I think that we're just like, by talking about witches here, that we're going to go see some little witches brew. And these players, I don't know if this match is going to make it all 90 at this point. It didn't last time they played 4 years ago.
See, I would actually believe you more if you were watching Croatia because I'm not unconvinced that Luka Modric isn't a boy witch.
I can believe that. I mean, he seemed to have stopped time, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I'm not hating, just
Oh, speaking of stopping time, Kai Kamara started for Sierra Leone today, despite not being on a club, and was the captain of the team at 40 years old that played against a front line of Mo Salah and Omar Marmoush, and they only lost 1-0 in Egypt.
yeah. Didn't you say that Bouanga and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang were starting for Gabon?
Yes. I
You guys
mean,
really need to start watching African World Cup qualifiers. They're fantastic.
they are, I mean, the crowd today, I was watching a little bit of Senegal Togo, that they had their supporter section for Senegal was sort of set up like a Cameron Crazy style where they were at midfield rather than behind the goal. And there was one section that was all yellow, one section that was all green, one section that was all red, and they were alternating their music across the sections. It was brilliant.
That's fantastic. Togo is actually the subject of one of my favorite songs, and if you have kids in the car, earmuffs before I say this. It's a song about Emmanuel Adebayor, and it's "Wake Me Up, yeah, yes and no go. You're so much better than that cunt from Togo." So we've lost the plot, and it is 40 minutes in. Here we go.
We never
Don't even
had the
talk about
plot.
the fucking
That's
game
the
that
secret.
much. Scott, bring us back on track.
Okay, so I think we've gone through the second goal for Austin. So the San
Sort of.
Diego goal is something that we talk about on the podcast a lot is just getting it on net and hitting it hard. And I think that this is a case in point of hitting, if you hit it hard at the goal, sometimes it deflects in. And unfortunately, Heinz Eich's legs were just at slightly the wrong position when it got hit. And they end up going or they end up cutting the lead to 2-1. The worst part about this goal is that the song in the South End ended right before it got scored, and it took a second before there was any kind of recognition of what the next song was going to be. And it's one of the very few times you will ever hear Q2 go completely silent. And then for some reason we did Cuervos, which was not really like a great time for Cuervos.
No, and like you mentioned, it was just sort of weird timing. I don't think we actually went through our goals yet, but what happened here? Other than like it hit Heinz like it
Well, I
seemed
mean,
like
they were able to get De La Torre free at the top of the box there. And that is something that we had done a really good job of forcing most of their opportunities either out wide or we weren't really allowing anyone. I mean, Jair got a little bit in there in the second half at some of those similar points around the top of the box and was able to get some space. But that De La Torre got space there and then hit it off Heinz Eich. Stuver didn't see the deflection and 2-1.
hard to blame Stuve on that one. And
No,
like you could see Heinz Eich's face afterwards too. Like he was just like, if I didn't touch this. But
yeah, I mean,
moving.
sometimes that happens. At least like Brad
Yeah.
didn't have the other Brad Guzan face. I don't know if any of you guys saw the Atlanta Cincinnati match earlier on Saturday, where Evander hits a free kick that slightly deflects off the wall, and Brad Guzan sort of does this like just like freezes in motion. And another 40-year-old that we're talking about, it's like, holy, like he just like when he knows where he's going, he's still a decent keeper. When he doesn't know where he's going, ooh, that was bad.
Yeah. Also, I know everyone's hearing this on audio, but Seth just did an awesome Brad Guzan face, which is great because Seth is like, I'm going to say half his age, even though I know that's not correct, but we're going to pretend that's right.
Brad Guzan's 75 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only like 5 years younger than him, but it sometimes feels like yes.
He's aged, man.
Brad Guzan once fought Joe Louis. You know what he said? Joe Louis, 117 years old. Brad Guzan was 150.
Before Brad says that Brad Guzan was drafted in the Korean War, Brad, do you want to walk us through our first goal when we were happy?
Our first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was exactly kind of what we were talking about, where the whole point was to counterattack all game. And, well, I think the thing that gets missed on the first goal, because everybody points to the Diego Rubio pass, which was a very nice through ball to Spring Vasquez. But it was the Sabovic play just before that he came in behind, I think it was De La Torre or someone who had the ball at their feet briefly, dislodged the ball just enough without getting a foul, and that's what pinged it over to Rubio to make the pass. So if you go back and watch that play, really watch what Sabovic does to start the play, because it's that one defensive touch that changes the entire spectrum of going from defending to attack in the span of like a second. And then the finish was just very nice.
And we didn't recover the ball and then like kick it backwards to the keeper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then great finish with Vasquez getting free, pulling away from the defender. Keeper comes out. He's able to get around him and still get kind of a tough angle shot into the net. So nice to see him get on the scoreboard. And, overall, the kind of thing that we've never really had in a striker, to be able to pull away like that, to be able to hit that quick counter to run in a true number 9. So exciting to see what could be moving forward. And I think what I came away from that goal and the game overall thinking about was, how does Uzuni fit back in? Because, Diego did a really nice job of springing some attacks, I thought. Is Uzuni going to be that partner in the same way? Or is he more suited to be more like a Vasquez? I'm kind of curious to see as that continues to build.
Well, I think the thing we've been talking about and we really enjoyed is that like we can change how we play. But yeah.
Thinking on that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but on that, I started thinking long term. When we get to midweek games, we get to May and we have 9 matches potentially. We're not going to have a roster out there that scares the hell out of me in midweek games or even an open cup, right? We can rest some guys and still be very competitive with the roster we're going to throw out there. So that was encouraging to see, I think, coming out of last week too.
I've watched this back about 10 times. Does this hit the front side of the post when it goes in? Or does it just sort of go, okay. I thought it did live, and I'm glad everybody's telling me, like, no, I'm crazy. So it was just an insane thing. The second goal was a lot of fun. I know we sort of touched on it, but is this just awareness from Owen and Galley, or is it something more?
I don't think it's anything more than 2 guys who apparently watched some film, saw it happen on the field, and took advantage of an opportunity. It's not like we set that up or anything. It wasn't out of the run of play from making 3 or 4 passes. It was just a heads up play. And you know what? If you can steal a goal, steal a goal. So I even if people will say, well, that's not how we probably should have scored, whatever. Normally, I think we have enough missed chances in the game where it balances out. And at no point do I think that the team that won didn't deserve to win the match based on the balance of the game and how it was played.
Yeah, I mean, going back again, like their center back stopped the ball and then Owen just sort of like snuck up and was like, Gally, you ready to go? You ready to go? Okay, then just kicked it forward. I don't call that stealing a goal. Like sometimes maybe a quick free kick is, but this is just them falling asleep.
Yeah, look, the game is a chunk of the game is played 6 inches between the ears. So credit to our guys for being smarter and thinking quicker on the ball and on the play. I don't. It's also a nice luxury to have someone like a John Gallagher who can make that run from the defensive position and still put a ball away pretty comfortably. That's not a luxury that many other teams are going to have.
Is this the greatest story you've ever heard about 2 people chatting in a tub?
Yes.
That involves Austin FC? Yes.
Okay.
I would also like to shout out that Brandon Vasquez's hold-up play is what causes this, because he's able to get a pass to his feet and control it and the defender enough that they foul him. And without that, this whole thing doesn't happen. And how vital that is to have that we haven't had before, in the sense of having a release valve and having a way out when we are hungered so deep as we were defensively, that you can get forward and score these kind of counterattacking goals.
Yeah, he wins the foul, right? So if he's not back there doing that, and then do you remember a long 2 weeks ago when everybody was complaining about him coming back to play the ball?
Some of us were not complaining about him coming back. We were praising his
Well,
performance on this podcast.
I was going to say the four of us may not be included on that, but
I mean, even still,
yes,
like
I'd
he
love
was
you
still
like
the
this.
furthest player forward for us when that happened. Like he wasn't like coming back that far. He was just receiving the ball there.
Which is really interesting. I mean, San Diego FC was without Chucky Lozano, who we did not mention earlier. And if you looked at their first match of the season, where they pulled off the surprise win against the LA Galaxy, he was playing so far back that you would have thought he was almost a six at that point. And it's really interesting to see. I'll be curious if he's back for our May 31st trip to San Diego. We will also plug that. If anyone wants to join us in San Diego, I think I'm probably the only one from this pod that's planning on going to San Diego. But we have sold, as of last check, 126 away tickets to San Diego. So this will be one of our largest away days that we've done outside of the state of Texas in quite a while. So this should be a really fun time. We would encourage people to come out to San Diego.
Wow, Seth, where can people go for tickets, and how soon do they need to buy them?
They can go to store.losverdes.atx.org/tickets, and that you can buy tickets there. They're $46 because, of course, people need to make money off. Hey, still cheaper than supporter section tickets at home in Austin. But and the ticket purchase deadline is May 14th.
Okay, perfect. So we talked about the witches market and the next watch party. We talked about Los Verdes tickets. Scott, we earned some money. What did we get this week?
So we didn't get money. We got an in-kind donation for promoting the Los Verdes watch party, and that's that the next home match, we get to use the starting 11 parking spots at Q2.
Oh, wow.
Is it at Q2 or on top of the Copeland?
So, I know for those of you who weren't there at the match, Brad and I were in the supporter section, and we had this great view of you can see the rooftop of the Copeland on past the north side of the stadium. And at the beginning of the game, there's a truck up there, and I'm just immediately like, well, how did they get a truck up there? So, unfortunately, very boringly, it turns out that the parking garage just goes up that high, which is a very boring answer. But the funnier part was that about 40 minutes in, we looked up and there was a second truck. And so Brad and I were kind of enamored with this the whole game, of just seeing these people who I don't think have a good view of the field from there, just choosing to like Wrigley stand it on top of the Copeland.
I thought it was lovely. Thank you for your photography. I think we need to talk about the second half, where it was less good and we should have had, well, I guess there were chances in the first half we probably should have buried, but like let's take this as a general scope. How many goals should we have actually won this game by?
3.
3. I said
You-
4-1.
Yeah, I agree with Brad there. Also, but like I'd sort of rather like I don't know, as a fan of the Cincinnati Reds, who have the tradition of beating someone 15-2 and then losing their next like 6 games because they wasted all their runs on one big win. Like I'm sort of like I will take a bunch of 1-goal wins because you know what, those goals there'll be some match where we score 3 on an xG of 0.8 because that's sort of inevitable in this, and sometimes you're going to underperform. Honestly, I will say, even though we were not bashing Andrew Wiebe, I do think it is a stunning tribute to Andrew Wiebe that Austin scored fewer goals than its XG in that match.
It is nice when that happens.
Well, it's nice when that happens and you still win the match.
And you win, yes. That's correct. I don't think there's anything tactically wrong with this. Like, we talked about it a little bit, but basically it was recover the ball in central midfield, like, let them dive into our little trap, and then turn it over, pass it to Owen, let Owen distribute, and then we had 5, 6, 7 kick it and run, and guys, it's an open net. I don't know what to do here other than be like, well, I guess we'll score more next time.
Yeah, like I think functionally there wasn't anything wrong with it. It just, if anything, you can look at it from a very abstract perspective of, hey, we're putting our DPs one on one with the keeper or in open space counterattacking while we're up goals. and think, oh, well, we probably, won by 2 or 3 at least. I don't, from that perspective, I think it was a perfect game plan. It's just, you need the guys that you pay to score goals, and when they are, everything looks amazing. You're a genius, and when they aren't, you look like an idiot. And I think Nico understands that more than anybody, based on his comments in the press conference, where he flat out said, like, talking about the tactics, like, well, yeah, if it works, I look like a genius.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite press conference moments ever. But I don't know. What do you guys think generally? Like, would you have changed tactics or just been like score better?
Yeah, no, the tactics were fine. Decision making in the final third, I think, was the biggest problem from some of our highest paid players. So, we talked about the Bukhari goal, the Bukhari decision to take it in, and I think that was the one Scott where he just completely whiffed it right to the complete right of the goal. Now that would have been offside. The flag was up, but there was a chance at a FIFA goal with Vasquez running clean down the middle. And even if it's offside, the right decision in open play there is to pass that ball closer to the top of the 18 instead of carrying it as deep as he did and allowing the keeper to close down that space. I didn't mind the shot that he took one-on-one with the keeper that was saved. I actually thought that was fine. And it was a really, really nice save to be made. Vasquez finishing the one where, again, he and Bukhari both had one in the second half where they completely biffed it to the right and didn't even hit the frame, right? But then, like, a minute later, Vasquez fizzed one right over the top of the frame, and Scott and I it was right in front of us. It was really close to hitting. So for me, I don't see, like, from a tactical perspective, like, would I have changed anything? No, because we just kept getting opportunity after opportunity. If you're giving yourself that many chances, you just expect to finish more. Question is, like, if Uzuni's in the game, do we maybe finish one or two more if we have those same types of chances? Probably, because he's probably the best finisher we have on the team, is my guess here, even though he hasn't scored for Austin FC yet. So all in, I mean, I'd take 100 games out of 100 just like that. Give me opportunity.
And like you're kind of saying, like, Bukhari didn't make bad decisions. He made the right decisions of when the shot was open, he shot. When the pass was open, he was setting up to pass. It just, his touch failed him before he got a chance to pass it over there. And that's something you have to take sometimes. I'd much rather have that of him having a clear shot and goal and taking a rip at it than trying to pass it right at the defender or something similar. Like, to me, like, looking at the process of it, the process of all of this was pretty good. And sometimes the results pan out based on that process, but soccer is ultimately still like a make or miss sport, and you have to look at the processes just as much as the results.
No, not just, yeah, it's part of the game here, and we learn, we navigate it, and it's just nice to be being coached by a guy who is actually going to make tactical adjustments and come up with clear, coherent strategies. And I'm looking forward to our next match against St. Louis. I mean, we're coming up to a team that plays with a very distinct style, that plays with a similarly defensive style, and I'm probably going to look at that lineup when it comes out at 12:15 next Sunday and have a few question marks, and hopefully within 20 minutes those questions will be answered.
Yeah, I do think that Zuni and Vasquez are going to work better together than we think, because I think both of them have enough soccer IQ and athleticism and touch on the ball to be able to link up play together in a way that I think actually might be really fun to watch and might work really well with the rest of the defensive structure of it, just kind of like Owen and Vasquez and Zuni just kind of being able to, like, form like a front triangle to kind of all interplay and go off.
I also think the guy that we kind of overlook a little bit in this game, because it's easy to, because we had so many chances and everybody loves talking the attack, but you guys mentioned Birlu on the back line, but Stuber had a really good game on Sunday, especially that save in the second half where he had a defender on him, and the defender kind of knocked him over. And I think it was a corner, or ball was in the box area, and Stuber scrambles to get up and is able to jump and still make a one-handed save to push the ball over the bar. Like, that is an athleticism. We joked about Brad Guzan earlier. Brad Guzan ain't making that save. And there's a lot of keepers in the league who are not getting up fast enough to scramble, find their position, and still have the reflexes to make that play. So he had a couple of other really nice plays during the game too, but that one just to me stood out as it's the first time I think this year we've really asked Brad to save one for us and finish off a match. And if you only have to ask him to do it once every few matches, it's a much nicer luxury to have than we've had in the past. They mentioned on TV the other day that this was he's been the league leader in saves like 3 of the last 4 years, and that's not a stat you want. Obviously not the case so far this year because we're just not giving up that many shots, but it's that big moment play, and he had a couple of them that we haven't had to call on him too much so far this year, and it's nice to see that, hey, when you got to call on it, it's still there, despite not getting peppered with shots all game.
Yeah, it's nice to have somebody who's in control in the box. I didn't notice this live. Like, I thought it was just a good swat. That's a save you should make. But like you said, like the other guy on San Diego kind of knocks him down, but not enough for a foul. So him just like cat-like getting up and then just swatting it over, it looks so much more impressive on the replay. If you guys haven't watched it, go take a look. It's fantastic.
To check in, Brad Stuber is currently 20th in MLS in saves, including behind a couple of keepers who only played 4 games.
Terrible.
The current leader, unsurprisingly, is Montreal's goalkeeper with 25. Stuber is at 11.
So do you think that's going to harm? Oh, is it going to harm Stuber's chances of making the All-Star game?
No, if Nico doesn't pick him, I don't care if we win every single point from now until then. If Nico doesn't pick Stuber for the All-Star game, he should be fired.
Fly the plane. I'm not even joking. We should fly an Estevez out plane if it's not, or yes. I'm sorry, Estevez Dutt plane if he doesn't pick Stuber.
Also, speaking of planes, so we now have a rival tequila companies that you cannot get access to in the stadium, flying planes over the stadium
for the entire 2 hours. It was amazing.
It was fantastic. Tequila Camarena is what I used to make margaritas with when I was 19. It's great. It's better than Pantalones.
I mean, I'm pretty sure rubbing alcohol is better than Pantalones.
Well, we'll do Seth's coming down for the All-Star game, so we're going to do some scientific research. I don't think that's going to be one of them, but, we'll put it on socials. We'll see. Follow us at Suffering Pod on Blue Sky. Okay, no. I can't commit Seth to sort of definitely poisoning himself, so...
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully the work schedule will let me get down to Austin for the All-Star game, but we'll see.
Yeah. You guys ready to do a format?
Sure.
Who wants to go first? Scott, stock rising.
Let me look at my notes. My stock rising was creative set plays. This is not something we normally see from Austin, but even... the opening kick was clearly a set play to get back to Stuber to kick it up, and it nearly resulted in a goal. There was a really great short corner where Kolmanich just tapped it like 2 yards forward for Owen to cross from. And if you think about the thought process of defending, you're expecting the, in swinger from the left footer, and it's an out swinger from a right footer really does do something to throw off the defense. And I thought that was an effective way of doing a short corner. And then later in the first half, there's a free kick from like 30-ish yards out that Sanchez stood over. And I think even during the setup, Brad and I were a little surprised that Ilya was over it. And I called out, oh, they're going to try to beat the trap. And they did. They just made a little diagonal run toward the touchline for Ilya to hit. And unfortunately, it ran too long, and there was a pick play foul called on Heinz Ike. But just seeing that kind of creativity to really keep teams off of or just keep teams like really aware on set pieces makes everything else more effective if you just do like the basics of them, because they're worried about like, oh, what about this option, or what about this option, or what about this option, and anything that causes them to think about anything besides steep ball, head ball, you're probably doing good.
I think that sounds good. We don't normally lead off with esoteric ones, but there we go. Seth, you want to go next?
Well, I already said that my stock rising is Guillermo Biru for just subbing in at center back. And anytime that you can use the Owen Wolf rule of that you can play multiple positions well and cover better than you think that you can, you automatically get a stock rising. So Biru gets it.
Sounds good to me, Brad.
Mine's going to go to Nico Estevez. I thought this was one of his first real challenges. Not having a full complement of the roster, some key guys out, having to play Biru at center back, making the decision to sit Bucati for the first half. I know they said that it was more of a coach's decision. I still think it's possible fasting may have played into that a little bit, but he made some aggressive and interesting tactical choices. And Danny kind of played more on the wing, right, during the match too, that I don't think we would have seen previously. And he has consistently putting this team in positions to get results. So I'll go with Nico here today.
Yeah, I had 3, and you guys took only one of them. Nico definitely deserves a shout out, and so does Owen Wolf. Holy shit, what a game, Owen. I know we set this game up, but Brad kind of mentioned Nico. We set it up because we believed in Owen to make these passes and talked about it earlier. Sabo was my other one, but we'd recover the ball, pass it to Owen. Owen looks up the field and decides where to distribute. And maybe he made 1 or 2 wrong decisions, but 80-90% of the time, especially for a kid that's 20 years old. And yeah, I don't like to talk about the like coming out of his dad's shadow thing, but like if you told me this was like a 26-year-old TAM 10, I would have been totally fine with it and totally believed you. And we definitely need to make sure we call out Owen when he's absolutely on top of it. And he was he was coming back. He was playing defensively. We talked about the pass to Gallagher. That's what, 3 assists and 4 goals for us? You can't underrate the kid at this point. Like, is he an all-star?
Team of the
5
week.
matches, I think so.
Yeah.
And you know what? He had Mauricio Pochettino watching his game last week at LAFC, and I don't know, we had a lot of U.S. midfielders this week that were sitting around doing absolutely fucking nothing.
You sound upset, Seth.
I shouldn't be upset, but like no one else is mad enough about the fact that we gave up a shitty goal to Panama. We didn't even come up to compete against Canada. Like Canada has their elbows up into our necks at this point. And I mean, they kind of should. Like that's not really a problem. But like, do we not like in most countries if they lost to 2 of their continental semi-rivals that they're normally like their little stepchildren a year before hosting the World Cup at home, that there would be national emergencies. There would be hearings in the country's parliament. The sports minister would be fired, not just the coach. Like, what are we doing here, U.S. men's national team?
Would there be a signal chat?
Oh, that was the problem. Poch, why did you leak those?
No, I mean, no, it would be,
fair.
they would break Chatham House rules if they had a signal chat.
Oh my god. All right, that was really good.
Okay. Again, they didn't actually break Chatham House rules. The U.S. men's national team press said it was okay to quote him, which means either they wanted him fired or they're completely inept, or both.
The answer is yes.
But honorary stock rising to Greg Berhalter for whatever the U.S. men's national team did, and the Chicago Fire for winning 3 consecutive road matches. The Fire won 2 road matches all of 2024. And the Fire, to celebrate that, has given every season ticket holder at Soldier Field 4 free tickets to Saturday's match. And that does not require opening the upper deck at Soldier Field.
I also have a secondary stock rising. Walking into the match, there was a Tiff's Treats truck, and it was hot and gooey and delicious, and they were free. Loved it.
Did you go to the new Argentine truck?
No, I did not, actually.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway.
All right. To be fair, the Panama winner was fucking hilarious. Especially the dude like running over, jumping over the boards, jumping onto a full stage in like one leap and being like, Thierry Henry, I love you, you're my idol. Absolutely box office. I will take that over a useless USA game that doesn't fucking matter.
Was I the only one that thought he was talking shit to Henri at first when it happened?
The way he was
He's gonna put
pointing
his
at him, it
finger in
looked
his
like it.
face, right?
No, Thierry Henry thought he was talking shit to Thierry Henry at first.
Yeah. You're definitely not the only one, so we're all on the same page.
Which, had he gone full Ted Lasso, shut up Thierry Henry, it would have been amazing.
Yeah, I need to have words with Brendan Hunt about this show and how he treats Thierry Henry, who is a god. Unlike Jamie Carragher.
Also, speaking of Jamie Carragher, did you see what country his son is playing for?
Malta.
Yes. Do you want to explain more about this, Devin?
I mean, you can, because you know you're our immigration expert, but essentially, like, Jamie Carragher's son is dog shit like he is. And I think Jamie Carragher's grandparents are Maltese.
Yes, I think it's through in-laws are Maltese. Yes.
Yes.
I believe Malta is the smallest country in Europe. Is that
That is
correct?
not even close.
No, it is definitely not. That is definitely Monaco is definitely the smallest country.
Monaco, the Vatican, and San Marino.
And Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a crossword clue that was wrong then.
Yeah.
There are plenty of crossword clues. I think it's the smallest member of the EU.
Maybe. Also, if you have $800,000 to invest in a hotel there, you can get citizenship and get EU access. Not that I'm pimping anything from here or things that I definitely don't have the money for, but I've certainly researched to get the fuck out of America.
Yeah. So Jamie and James both received their Maltese citizenship in February. So his father's maternal grandfather. Yes.
Okay, that was pretty close.
Yeah, not far off.
Yeah, Scott's connecting the dots. While we're doing erstwhile insane stocks rising MLS, not the league, the player.
Oh yes, yes. Congratulations on his first England goal against. Yeah. Also, if any of you have seen the clip of Jude Bellingham running around Uzuni, that's something that happened. I guess I don't think you could get an Austin FC player played 90 minutes against England at Wembley. Your stock cannot fall for that. But the fact that he became a global meme is not great.
Also, Jude Bellingham runs around a lot of people.
Especially strikers.
Yeah, that's not when you can really hang up on him. But Miles Lewis-Skelly became the youngest debutant to ever score for England, and the third youngest player to ever score for England after Scott Heartthrob Wayne Rooney and Seth Heartthrob Michael Owen. And also he's a left back, so that's kind of cool. And there's been a bunch of like super racist shit said about him lately, so I'm happy to see him do well.
You're telling me that there are racist people? I never would have said such a thing.
Yeah, they would have definitely never said anything like that. Did you guys know that Cole Palmer actually cured cancer, and it only happened because he like rubbed a balm on Phil Foden at the same time? This is what English media actually believes.
But like, it's not even just English media. I mean, I think I told you guys, like, I was at a City match at the Etihad in 2019 in Champions League, and I was just going around the club enjoying my pint and a pie, like anyone should before a match. And that was it's like, oh, like, who's your favorite player? And every single person, Phil Foden. I'm like, Phil Foden's like 18 at the time, and it's like, well, he's a mank. No, just say he's white. Like, just say that he's white and from your island, and like that's really it. It is.
Sorry, that's the funniest Seth's been in a while, at least while I'm still on the microphone. I'm gagging a little bit here. As the nominal adult here, Brad, bring us back stock falling.
Taylor Twellman. On rewatch, I thought he had just a terrible game. It felt like he did zero research coming into the match. He was insistent that Austin wanted to play with possession, and we weren't doing that, and therefore had no control over what we were trying to do in San Diego was dictating the match. And I felt in the stadium that we were very obviously trying to play a counterattack game, and then on rewatch, it was even more obvious, and it just makes me – it's frustrating that
a professionally paid commentator who played the game can't adjust his preconceived notion while watching the information come in real time. But me, who's been watching the sport for just a few years now, can sit here and go, this is what we're trying to do today. That should
had a concussion or 7.
I knocked myself out playing slow pitch softball before. I mean, and I can still figure this out. Yes, that's true, actually.
I mean, y'all probably didn't even know he was a virgin until he was like 28, and now roll tide. I know we don't do that. Sorry, Brad. I'm sorry I offended you. All right.
No. I'm over here dreading the very real possibility of an Iron Bowl of basketball national championship right now.
I would love that. I have that in one of my brackets, and I meant to go back and change it, but I didn't. And here we are. Seth, stock falling.
Stock falling. At this point, I was a little disappointed by Ilya's performance. I thought he could have done a little more in this match. I mean, I don't think it was bad per se, but it got to a point there where we talked earlier about should have we built up to at least 30-35% possession. I thought he was a little invisible, and maybe it was because of the formation that we played with having us sit back a little deeper, but I was expecting him to take a little more proactive of a role in this match, and he was more invisible than I expected him to be, which was a bit surprising, and it was unlike his first 4 performances this season. And I have to remind myself he is in his mid-30s, and he is on the back end of his career. Still a great guy, still a strong player, still captain of this team, but stock falling a little bit on a day where stocks were fairly rising.
I think maybe this week and last week, we need to kind of revise expectations, because there are games where he plays 60 minutes and he's the absolute boss of the field. And if we're asking him to play 90, he's not going to have that full. He's not going to be N'Golo Kante in 2016, right? It doesn't mean he's bad, just he's not going to be the absolute dominating destroyer. Brad?
On the Ilya subject that has nothing to do with what he did on the field during the match, it is so refreshing to have a captain actually engage with the fans in the South End after a match. Seth, you probably didn't see this being on TV, but after the match, he stayed not only for the heartbeat, not only for I Love You Verde, where he's dancing around having a great time. He was the last player off the field applauding every single person in that South End. And genuinely looked happy to be there. So it's just so nice to have an engaged captain for a change.
Let's have an actual fucking adult in the room. Scott, stock falling?
I think this is a little harsh of a stock falling, but I'm going to say Osman Bukhari, just because he didn't actually finish any of the goals. And ultimately, that matters, especially when you're a designated player in MLS. And as your designated players go, usually your results follow. So it'd be nice to see him get on the score sheet when the ball comes off of him intentionally.
That was kind of harsh. Was he correct to shoot when he shot?
He was correct to shoot when he shot, and the pass that he attempted to make was the correct decision. But you also have to score the goals.
Yeah, you also have to put the ball in the net, or put it across for Vasquez to put it in.
And also there aren't a lot of stock falling options. My other thought was Mikel Dessler, just because John Gallagher looks so good at right back and looks to be a better fit for what we're trying to do counterattacking wise.
Well, thanks for fucking stealing mine, Scott.
You let me do too. I don't know. It's your own fault.
I didn't. You just did it. Yeah, the answer is Mikel Dessler. Anybody who's kind of on the outs right now, because that looked really, really good. And I know we're not going to play funnel to the middle, turn the ball over, counterattack, and it's not going to be 900 high XG chances every week, but it's really, 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 really nice to know we can do that. And we've seen a couple different game plans now where we look pretty good doing them. And that's really nice to see we're 5 games in, and I think we've seen 3-ish different, very adaptable game plans that all look pretty good. And it's nice to know we can do all of those things at once. The other stock falling I had in mind was my narrative about as soon as we start getting new chances or big chances, we're going to start burying them. When I talked about Mohamed Salah and Erling Haaland last week. That didn't look great after this game because we kept missing big chances, but maybe I'll look smart in like a month. We'll see.
I would take a match like this where we're creating chances all day. The only thing I am disappointed is that Dos Santos, their keeper, didn't give up one in the South End because he was so like, I don't know how much you guys probably see it more from the supporter section. Dude was rattled by the South End that was visible on TV on the rewatch. That I was like, ooh, he was not having a fun time out there. And there's nothing I enjoy more than keepers not having a fun time in the South End.
True Love did not find him in the South End. Not at all. Brad, let's do moment of suffering.
Talked about it a bit already, but it was, like you said, it wouldn't have counted, but the FIFA goal in the 61st minute where if Buka just passes at the top of the 18, it's a tap in for Vasquez. Like that, it's decision making for me. That's the moment of suffering. In the moment, I didn't realize it was offside. That's the one that I think, out of all the chances that we kind of biffed during the match, that's the one that frustrated me the most.
Okay, yeah. I was going to pick the entire second half, but I'll pick something else going forward. Seth, how about you?
I'm going to choose a different moment from the second half. We had consecutive moments, I think 75th, 76th minute, where San Diego FC hype man Andres Dreyer had two chances near the top of the box. And I was convinced that at least one of those was going to go in. And especially listening to the game on radio for the first time, it's like a Dreyer gets himself in position. You're just like, oh, fuck, we've just given away this lead. And like, oh, save, miss. Okay. It's just like, there are a number of people in our community who just want like a nice, easy 3-0, 4-1 win at some point. Maybe we will have one of those this season. But like, this team's going to continue to elevate our blood pressure. And that's just part of being an Austin FC fan at this point.
To quote the great Chadwick Boseman, we don't do that here. Scott, how about you?
My moment of suffering, we kind of had alluded to it earlier, but there are a few things more fun than at the end of the game when the goalie goes forward for a corner. And one of the things that's really fun about it is it's the one time that you see a soccer player actually try to score from their own half. And it's something that I have always wanted to see live, and I never have. And this match on Sunday had the perfect opportunity. Live in person, Seth. You're giving me a look. Live in person. But
the look I was giving is I'm thinking of if I've ever seen that happen in person.
Okay, yeah.
And
So,
I can't think of a time, but I have seen enough matches that like something will come to me and you'll get a DM about this in 2 days.
Yeah, especially after the recent anniversary of the Wayne Rooney half volley from his own half against West Ham, which is one of the greatest goals I've ever watched. But Yadier Obrian had a chance to score from his own half, and unfortunately he shanked it a little too much. But you have that hope for like a second or two that you're going to see this absolutely amazing thing that you're going to remember forever, and then it's just another forgotten shot wide.
I loved the angle I saw that from because he hit it, and I was like, you have all your adrenaline. You're like, oh my god, it's going in, and then you're like, this might be a throw-in. Just the difference between those two things in half a second are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Brad and I were at the aisle between 103 and 104, and like for the first like second or two, it actually looked like it was going to be online, and then you slowly remember how much the ball curves.
Yeah, this is a fun game, and we're all digging for stocks falling, and I mean, we had a couple moments of suffering where our hearts went in our mouths for a second, but for me, it was literally anytime going out onto the concourse with all the people who have obviously never been to a professional sporting event again. Holy shit, people, you don't need to stand like 10 across in the middle of the concourse just to talk to each other. It's really, really impressive. And if that's the biggest thing I have to complain about this game, I think we're in a good spot. You guys want to do a quick preview for next week?
Yeah, I've got a few things for that.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and lead this off with St. Louis had an absolutely insane implosion on Saturday. Edward Leuven had a actually legitimate delaying the restart, kicking the ball away, second yellow, red card. They play in a general like low block 3-4-2-1. Former Aston Villa and Juventus player Olaf Melberg and General Handsome Guy is their coach. We talked about them not giving up a goal before, but they look pretty leaky. Brad, you want to take us away?
Kind of leads me to where I'm going here. If you had to guess, St. Louis has given up 1 goal this season. Austin has given up 3. Who averages allowing more XG against per match? Who is that?
Houston.
Not wrong. The answer is St. Louis, and it's not an insignificant number. Opponent XG per 90. St. Louis is just a shade over 1 a match, 1.02. Austin's at 0.74. Which means defensively on the whole, and I think XG in a vacuum in a game doesn't really tell you a ton, but as you get more and more data, it starts to give you an idea of how a team plays and what they can do creation-wise and what they can do for stopping chance creations. Also, when you talk about XGs created per game, Austin's at 1.33, St. Louis is at 1.09. So when you start looking at the whole of how these two teams shape up, I actually think we, on paper, might have an advantage here. I expect a low-scoring match still because of the way both teams will likely set this game up. There's a really decent shot that weather might not be that fun on Sunday as well. Seth, I'm not sure if you've seen the forecast.
Yeah, well, I was on the security call today, and it's like,
Yeah.
but the truest thing that we can know about a Midwest forecast is that a Midwest forecast 5 days out does not matter. It could be 80 degrees there and perfectly sunny, and it could snow there, and neither of those outcomes would surprise me.
Yeah. Well, according to my app right now, the high is 70, but also heavier thunderstorms with flooding downpours, hail, damaging wind gusts, and a tornado.
Yeah, so we were told us at the security call that if it is just lightning, stay in your seats because you're under the roof and you will be fine. If a tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning is issued, you will have to crowd into the bathroom. And so I asked them, like, okay, so if there's actually 22,500 people at the game, what would you do? And their stadium staff probably responded, well, just like you, we have sellouts, but we almost never actually have 22,500 people in the stadium. And if we know the weather's going to be bad, there's no way there's going to be over 20,000 people, and we'll be able to find space for everyone indoors if we're under 20,000. Even if
Rich, you guys have all these terrible things to say about normal weather in my hometown.
You know, the Titanic said the same thing. The people who had that, and we saw what happened there. So,
but the question
sorry, Brad, did you think the Titanic, a giant ship built in 1911 that crashed in 1912, could talk?
Yes, of course it could. I've seen Thomas the Tank Engine. You can't tell me otherwise.
Okay.
The question is now that it is City Park has been renamed Energizer Park, is it more likely to have batteries to survive a storm or not?
Less.
Well, getting back to the match preview though, real quick. So, sorry. The 3, I mentioned how little St. Louis has given up. Also, look at how little they're scoring. Like, they've scored 4 just like Austin this year, but 3 of those came in one game against Galaxy. They've been shut out twice, or 3 times, I think, and they've scored one other time. This is not an attack that scares me.
Yeah, so the one against Seattle was Edward Levin, who's suspended and hitting a banger of a free kick.
Yeah, I think this is a real good chance for Austin to pick up a result, if not all 3 points.
We owe them vengeance.
I'm really interested to see how Nico sets up, because these are 2 teams that don't like to play with the ball. And I kind of wonder if it's going to be a match of 2 teams just kind of like punting it and giving it away. Like, they're 2 of the bottom 4 teams in total passes attempted so far this season. And so I don't know. I like Austin to keep it a low scoring game, which is not like always a thing that happens against St. Louis, which is one of the few teams we've played multiple times and never beaten. And at the same time, like, if the weather gets crazy, anything can happen. I just don't think St. Louis is very good. And I hope that this is a game where Austin can get a result and kind of take care of business and continue their momentum.
I can confirm they're not very good, but that's what kind of worries me. Are we expecting to have the full complement of internationals back? and actually available.
Everyone should be back. Well, Jimmy, I think, is hurt, but as we discussed earlier in this podcast, like we don't know.
Yeah.
Izuni looks healthy. Well, obviously, Leo left permanently to Haken. So yeah, at this point, everyone else should be back, ready to go. And yeah, I think it should be. We should be able to use a relatively first choice. I'll be curious if Svatak or Julio is starting at center back with Heinz Eich.
I don't feel good for Svatak after his country's recent results.
Yeah.
If you guys didn't see, Ukraine won 3-1 and then lost 3-0 and got. I don't know what the fucking rules on the Nations League are, but it wasn't good.
They don't like. Also, like I've been looking at the new UEFA qualifying scheme, and the fact that it is 12 groups means that the favorite there's like 12 really good teams UEFA. So if you're not one of the 12 really good teams, getting one of the 4 final spots is going to be very hard in this cycle.
Not great, especially since Scotland decided to blow it against Greece too.
Yeah, but that means that they just have to finish second in their group and then win two playoffs. So that's going to be hard.
Then, jump over an alligator pit and finish 3 Rubik's cubes, and normal qualification.
Yeah, it is all. So also congratulations, since the last time we've recorded this podcast, 3 more teams have qualified for the 2026 World Cup. The Japan, Iran, which good luck getting their visas to the United States for that. That's going to be an interesting experiment. And New Zealand have all qualified for Argentina also qualified earlier today because Bolivia did not beat Uruguay. So 7 of the 48 tickets have been clinched.
Wow, what a select group.
I mean, these are all teams that are now regulars at the World Cup, so this isn't anything too surprising. Uzbekistan came fairly close to clinching a spot today. They did not, but if they could get a draw in their next match against the UAE, Uzbekistan could clinch their first trip. I guess since, does a trip from the Soviet Union count for Uzbekistan? I'm going to say no, but
no. I get why West Germany counts for Germany, but Uzbekistan is not the powerhouse of the Soviet Union.
But I really hope that we get a few very silly group stage matches, I don't know, Panama versus Uzbekistan, things to be yes, this is the World Cup at 48 teams.
I want to see St. Kitts and Nevis play Fiji.
No, but there's that tournament where the Marshall Islands is playing in Northwest Arkansas, so that will have those matches.
I'm sorry, tell us more about this.
That the Marshall Islands is the only country that is globally recognized that doesn't have its own soccer team until very recently. And the largest expat community of people from the Marshall Islands is actually in Northwest Arkansas, of all places. And that they are going to host a tournament that involves 3 other teams. That's going to be their first ever. It's going to be called the Outrigger Cup. And the other teams that are playing in this tournament are, give me 1 second, they are the last nation to have a team that it's going to be at John Brown University in August. And it is also going to, this article is telling me all about the fundraising efforts. Who else is playing in this tournament? That is what I want. It is
while Seth is looking that up, Argentina just scored a 4th on Brazil, and the Argentinian fans are very, very excited in the stands.
Yeah, actually, this isn't Seth. We're just trying to run an AI of what Seth would sound like if he made a prompt about the Islands.
No, so the other countries that are playing this are the glorious Turks and Caicos, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Guam.
Oh, okay.
So the Marshall Islands is the only one of those that's an actual country. But we will see how they do against these 3 other FIFA entities.
All right. Well,
I feel like we have one more piece of soccer business that we have to look back on first.
Yes.
We can do the preview next week. But favorite match from round 1 of Open Cup?
Oh, that's a good question. I liked Asheville against Greenville because there was so much pain in the penalty shootout. And it felt very suffering from joy.
We had some of the best commentary of all time on the FC Cincinnati 2 match versus the New York team, where Luigi's cousin Peter, was multiple times they talked about how he couldn't pull the trigger in the box, how he couldn't find space. Like, it was just like, how is this a thing? That like, but
Did it feel like a bet?
oh, it had
I
to
didn't watch
be.
the game. Okay.
Like it absolutely had to be. And like the great thing about almost every US Open Cup announcer is that they know that they're announcing the first round of the US Open Cup for like 1,000 people, that this is like the primest of prime sicko audiences, so they can say whatever they want. I mean, I think it was Mike Watts and Devin Kerr did a match last year in Sacramento where they cited 215 Taylor Swift songs throughout their commentary.
Yep.
Like it is like you can just do these types of things in matches, and it's pretty hilarious.
By the way, I did
No
get
Don Garber, Eddie Q, Tim Apple's censorship on this one.
Ian Wright did not fly out to see the Des Moines Menace win against SKC2, but as I look off to my right and see a money gun that was once fired in the general direction of Benny Failhaber, it's nice to always think about. Scott, how about you?
No, I like the Asheville versus Greenville match. It definitely had the most suffering from joy concept because it at no point did either team look like they were going to string together passes or score until the penalty shootout, which was also kind of poor.
And the guy who missed for Asheville went to Elon, by the way.
Yes, I did notice that too. And then I'm trying to refresh my memory. I mean, I enjoy the minor league promotion aspect of what the Des Moines Menace are doing, because it's just like, hey, let's get a bunch of commentators together to like throw them together and we'll get some attention and see what the old guys can do. And I think that's just kind of a like fun concept, especially if for how like their seasons hasn't started, which I think is always one of the weird schedule things about this tournament. So I enjoyed that just from the like just from the perspective of like seeing like the old timers still try to do it one more time.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the old timers did it. I mean, it's from the spot, but got him through.
What would happen here if we got a Matt Hedges reunion in Austin in the 4th round if they end up winning 2 more matches?
We would run past him religiously.
I would just match up CJ Fodre out there, honestly.
Yeah.
So my 2 that I really enjoyed was the game wasn't that great, but Appalachian FC, the fact that they have a Sasquatch walking around, plus there was a giant man tailgating in a yellow and black kilt next to the Sasquatch at one point. That was fantastic. And then 2, in an upset, a very good Birmingham team, typically USL championship team, lost to a 4th division team in Little Rock on a high school football field that couldn't have been more than like a 2A or 3A high school football field. 6A. You couldn't see the lines because normally, the lines are painted, the touch lines are painted in white to make it visible. They were like black. They were really hard to see because the lighting sucked. There was a freight train running behind one of the corner flags. There were cars behind one of the ends that got pelted with balls that got shot over the goal. Like, it was absolute perfection in Little Rock.
I will note everybody's favorite burrito place did win in Salt Lake over Real Monarchs.
Also, stock rising to the one guy who the single burrito Barra Brava fan who was waving a massive flag. Like the amount, if he had an Oura ring on, the amount of calories that he must have burned waving that huge flag over 120 minutes. Whew, gosh, like that's marathon level stuff.
At altitude.
Yeah. No, also at a historic site of the if any of you watched the NWSL's back tournament in 2020, where the playground is, like it is a stadium with a legitimate stadium with a playground in the corner. How amazing is that?
Yeah. Also should be noted that the team that knocked Austin FC 2 out last year, 4-0, came out with a victory for their 2nd straight year in the first round. So
over Texoma.
Texoma. So good on them.
So I have to appreciate that Texas has 2 teams that are left in the second round of the tournament. Obviously, there will be more that enter in the third and fourth rounds of the tournament. But El Paso has to go out to Galaxy 2, Ventura County, which they're actually not even playing in Ventura County. They're playing in Carson at the track stadium, not at the old StubHub Dignity Health, whatever they call it these days, stadium. And then the 4-0 has to go to Statesboro, Georgia to play the South Georgia Tormenta. So Texas,
Tormenta.
So we will see.
There's no easy way to get to Statesboro, Georgia, man.
There is, unless you got a private plane. I mean, there is.
You have to fly to Columbus.
Statesboro is not that far from Savannah, and DFW has a direct flight.
Columbus is nowhere near Statesboro, Georgia.
No, Savannah.
Oh yeah, no. Devin said you could fly.
Yeah, no, he was replying to me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
Yeah, Savannah or Jacksonville are kind of like your only options, really. So it's wild.
Anyway, so I know Austin doesn't come in until the 4th round, but when is after this? Is there? At what point do they start drawing like the brackets out? Like
there's never a drawing of brackets per se for this.
Okay.
So what they do is that they will, for the 3rd round, I believe there will be a draw next Thursday, because that is where 16. So there will be 16 teams from this first round, 2 rounds. So 64 teams were in the first round, 32 teams in the second round. Then we have 32 teams in the 3rd round because 16 USL championship teams will enter in with the other 16 winners. And those 16 teams will all match up against teams that were 1st or 2nd round winners. Of those 16 matchups, all of those winners will play an MLS team in the 4th round. 8 of the MLS teams, including Austin, will be at home. 8 of the MLS teams will have to go on the road.
If you made it this far and you listened to that and comprehended it, full mark sicko, friends. In the end,
do a full sicko preview next week. So
I don't know. Yeah. I will say, if they do it, they've been doing the draws mostly in Fort Lauderdale because that's where the studio is, where most of these announcers are remote broadcasting. But if they ever want to do a draw here in Chicago, I can walk to the U.S. Soccer headquarters before they move it to Atlanta. I would love to do a U.S. Open Cup draw because that sounds like a lot of fun. I will do it for free. You don't need to pay me a dime for it. I will walk over. You don't even need to give me a bottle of water. I will gladly do that.
Seth is sort of hinting we might do something interesting for the St. Louis City game at the weekend, but we have to iron out some details first because I've let this go on way goddamn too long. On behalf of Brad, Seth, and Scott, thanks for suffering with us. Bye.
Promise here for Austin Jarrett Stroud. It's Diego for goodness! He has written his name into Austin folklore.
They just won't go away.
Oh, he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
Altidore squares it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory.